John sounds a bit ill, and Eric say absent too, so we'll recognise those. It's all good. And we'll hand over to the Marcus, who is in their sea lot of these days.
Thanks very much, Councillors.
Hang on, just dance to the music. Right.
Yeah, so here to talk to you about local government reform and simplifying local government. So prepared a brief presentation and just wanted to talk through the mechanics. So submissions are due on the 20th of February. So we're effectively looking to have a council meeting on the 19th of February. So we'll be looking to circulate a fulsome agenda tomorrow afternoon or Thursday afternoon for a full copy of the submission. But I just want to talk through what's happening, what the implications are, and then potential position we may reach on that. I've circulated in the workshop material the position paper that was generated last year when the Simplifying Local Government announcement came out. We worked through a workshop with Anne Patello down at Transport World, so that was the attached workshop documentation with that policy position. I'm not going to talk too closely about that, but yeah, I just put that on the table for councils to have a read of, and we'll put it up to a strategy and policy committee meeting for endorsement adoption. But I just want to work through the points in this presentation today, just to work through that, make sure we're in the right space with our comments and submission for the Simplifying Local Government proposal. So it is a proposal at this stage. It's not a bill in front of Parliament, so it's no law changes or any change to the law at this stage. It's just understanding what the feelings are out there in the community about the reconciliation with local government functions.
I'll just ask a question just to clarify. So it's not a bill, like it's not. This is actually just a proposal, submission proposal. What's the community think? Just to clarify that.
Yes, correct for you, Chair. It is solely a proposal at this stage, not a bill. So effectively, they're trying to understand what the feelings are in the community, and then that will inform the decisions around what a bill could look like, whether they're on the right track, or whether some amendments, or whether it's part until next term. I understand the Parliament is rising on the 24th of September this year, so there's about 7 months of parliamentary work to be done this year before the election in November. So the time frame for getting bills through the process is starting to get to that stage where sort of urgent items and things that are important. So whether that bill is generated out of this piece of work or whether it's a next term thing, we're not yet sure.
So it's not. This is the normal way that they don't usually put proposals out, do they? Or they're more or less saying, here is something.
Yeah. Through the chair. So effectively, they have done that in the past. They did that with the regulatory standards proposal. There was a preliminary consultation document that went out that informed the regulatory standards bill, which managed to get its way through the process and reached royal assent. No. But yeah, generally it's bills that we submit on, but this one seemed important enough to warrant a submission on the proposal. So there's a bit of a background agenda, but I'll whip straight into the key main points. So a bit of background. The Department of Internal Affairs is leading the public consultation on the proposal. The local government structures that we currently have in Southland have remained largely unchanged since the 1989 reforms. And there are concurrent reforms underway, as council's well aware, resource management changes as well as rates capping. So I guess we're trying to understand the consequential implications of multiple changes across the system and how to best respond and identify potential problems and solutions around these cascading reforms. The proposal introduces a new combined territories board. So that model is basically shifting the governance from regional functions over to combined mayoral board. It's also worth noting too that Southland councils are already in a in a process with the Local Government Commission, and that is a separate process to the conversation that's happening today. The today conversation is a central government proposal to implement a combined territories board and work through the process. So I'm happy for any questions or comments as we work our way through. So effectively, first main, submission point is the local context of Southland. So the centralising of governance under the Combined Territories Board, reducing regional authority, structural changes that place regional functions under territorial leadership. That's what's proposed. The implications of that are the risk to management of Southland's environmental assets, including water, biodiversity, coast and air. Biodiversity functions may have a less or diminished priority due to a lack of understanding from the mayors and those parties involved. Loss of integrated catchment management and the mountains to sea approach, because the different mayors will be looking at their own assets or their own areas of influence. They may not be looking more holistically. Area partnership could weaken without delegated regional structures, and there's potential interference with the current local government commission review that's underway. So from this, our recommendations are that the submission would voice that the central government take into account regional governors' institutional knowledge when designing transition, allow the local government commission review for Southland to conclude their process before the central intervention. So that's looking at the more specific Southland solution, generic nationwide approach, and then integrate the local government commission recommendations into any redesigned model.
Yeah, thank you for that, Marcus. It seems that we've got not only one initiative or two initiatives, we've now really got three initiatives. We've got central government initiative for standardising local government around the whole country with the CTPs. We've got the local government commission, which is separate again, and we've also got the plans that Southland District Council put forward, which is another one. The likelihood is that it will possibly be standardised. The likelihood is that the central government process will be the one that will be put in place for all local authorities. I don't think that changed.
Just to clarify, the SDC and Local Government Commission are one and the same. Because that's what indicated.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so through you, Chair. So effectively, the Combined Territories Board is an intermediate process. So effectively that would be proposal is that's the initial governance decision-making process for regional council functions, and then they would go through a process over time to determine the best governance model for each region. So whether it is a unitary or whether it's combined or whether it stays status quo or whatever the situation is, the Combined Territories Board would navigate that process and identify the right solution. But the proposal doesn't say everybody shall become a unitary or there shall be this many unitaries or how things work. There could be a multiple different approaches around how governance could look in Southland as part of that recommendation from the Combined Territories Board.
Thank you. Given that the two proposals at the top are the kind of top priority, really, right? I'm not sure that the recommendations address those two particular issues. For me, the CTBs are a real problem, and apart from saying we think they're a real problem, coming up with an alternative model would be, in my view, the wisest way to offer some constructive criticism, because the CTBs are, well, as we all know, they miss us out completely. And if they're just, and if that group are going to design, if they are going to design the long-term structure, there's no way that a regional voice should not be on that group. So I think we need to nut out, and I don't have an answer, an alternative to the CTBs, and some other points that address the structure changes, diminishing those points made in the applications, right? I don't have an answer, I just think that that's a way that we could be more thorough and productive in offering them some suggestions.
Through you, Chair, just to address that, we have got that recommendation in one of the subsequent sections that we'll talk through around basically disagreeing with the proposal of Combined Territories Board, and if there are to be set up, then request that there's the chairman of the regional council will be also involved in that process, so there is that regional lens.
Yeah, I don't think that's enough, personally. You know, I don't think that CTB is the way. But as I say, I haven't got my brain around what a good alternative would be. But the danger with saying, well, all you need to do is include the chairman, is giving consent to that structure, and I don't think we should be consenting to that structure.
I've got a comment on it all, in regards to supporting that, but David.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. I have been thinking about this a bit, and I think that the thing that's crazy, following on from what Lyndall's saying, the Combined Territories Board or the mayors, we can put a bit of humour in here somewhere, because you're asking them to run this in their spare time. You know, they're already busy. And secondly, on this thing about coming up with a plan for change, I believe the Combined Territories Board was for areas where there's no plan and to come up with a plan to work towards change. We've already got that on the table. So why wouldn't you allow it? Because the council's still going to run. It seems crazy that you take the pilot off the ship. You know, you end up putting someone that's driving past on a jet ski on the ship to run it, because they don't. So maybe a little bit of humour in there, something, because you're asking the mayors to run this in their spare time. Oh, they've got nothing else to do. Just a thought. To take it away from being very wordy, it's nice to have something that, right, you know, so just a suggestion.
Yeah, I'll just say my little bit. The reality is they're wanting regional councils. That's what they ultimately have, a regional council. We are a regional council. I don't see any problem. The same principle saying, we'll kick out all the mayors and we'll take over the region. We'll take over the TAs. We represent the whole of Southland. We're the Southland voice here. No other TAs have that. They have their districts, but we have a representation from throughout Southland here. Now, I'm just throwing that out as a bit of fun. It doesn't make any sense to carry out regional councils, regional council governance, when you're wanting a regional aspect or a regional council from a government perspective. So, and you go, what's the difference of us running the TAs as they're running us? We both probably have their experience and having a mandate to do the environmental discussion. It's probably as much experience as we've got in the other way too. But same principle, both of them are probably could be logical to do if you're wanting to get a regional approach. But we do think regionally. The other TAs don't. No, I'm saying that not confrontational, but the reality is they work within their own districts, because we know there's a connection right through, especially with the environment, because it doesn't the environment doesn't worry about waters. So I just like to put that out there. So that and that's the discussion there with the government. This doesn't make sense, kicking us out. Next step out is that yes, we should be involved if it goes down to a board. There should be representation from a regional. That'd be a must, and it would make sense, because the discussions we've had in regards to people further up the food chain towards government, they're saying, there is a discussion, that some of these mayors don't have experience in this to understand that. Now they're saying, oh, we'll bring the commissioners in who've got experience. We're saying, you've got experience here now. They can bring all aspects of the community together. So again, doesn't make sense to replace someone who's already there to be able to add that discussion. So I mean, that's where I stand. I don't know where we're going to end up, but it's going through this process, and we're a little fortunate we're in the LGC that we are still in the room having our input, so that's good. So I'm just making that point, sort of, there's a bit of logical, something that just makes sense and something that doesn't make sense. Anyway, Roger, Morris, and then Alistair. Oh, you'll be there somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, we'll start with Roger and Morris. Sorry.
Skip me. No, I'm largely agree with what you've just said, Jeremy, and I was going to sort of make very similar comments. So, and Dave too, actually. I think the mandate is one of the big challenges that, you know, if the mayors were to sit on a CTB, you know, they've been recently elected on a mandate that's quite different from the which regional councillors have been elected on. And if we face a situation where commissioners are brought in, then there's likely to be cost implications that are far greater than what we're paid around this table. So I think what Jeremy's saying makes a lot of sense to me. And back to Lyndall's sort of point, I think, you know, perhaps our first approach is that we want to see the LGC process, you know, run its course, and whether that means we need to think about a conversation with LGC around accelerating it, or, you know, how that the timeframes work is perhaps a parallel or separate conversation. But I think that's what we should be really emphasising, is that we want to see that LGC approach run its course for Southland and allow for the democratic input of Southlanders. However, if a top-down or central intervention approach is going to be used, then reiterating what Jeremy's said around, you know, having the institutional knowledge around this table included in that would be at a minimum.
Oh, the others could go first while I get rid of my croaky throat.
Okay, I'll go to Alistair and then.
I think we've got to look to the big picture here, and democracy will determine in the end. And at least whatever system is set up, and I don't like the idea of the CTB system, but whatever is set up, we have the right to stand and get on those boards. So we can bring that environmental flavour back in. Doesn't matter what the government says or what anybody says. It's a democracy that are going to do it in the end. So we've just got to look beyond that and get on with it and make sure somebody that has that environmental flavour, or so the whole lot of us, stand, and if people like us and what we're doing, we'll get on.
The CTBs, we will not, they are three mayors.
Yeah, but there'll be elected people on, the mayors won't just run it.
No, well, they can sort it out, but we're out.
Yeah,
Just but the three
we're
mayors,
out, we
nobody's
do
getting
that.
elected, nobody's getting elected to be on those boards.
Yeah.
They could probably ask for people to be brought in, but it's those three mayors, and that's the thing, it's a wee bit great.
I think at the moment we can't stand with that,
No.
but there's got to be an elected board to come back in and run 2 unitaries or one.
On the end product, that's probably what I'm saying. In the end, it could be that there's 12 people with a unitary, one unitary running the whole South. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter who's that. It's about the representation around that table. And I was just saying that we've got that representation for regional already discussion. But Ewan, are you right, or Ewan?
No, we.
Morris? Okay, Morris.
Well, yes, I think we've got to, as Roger says, we've got to promote the local government commission process. We support that. And what, you know, that comes up with, that's what the community, provided the community has an input, and then I understand they will. You know, that's really what we've got to promote. But we also need to say, Dave was saying about, a jet skier jumping on board a ship and run that kind of thing, is we've got to discredit the CTBs, because they're clearly somebody's some kind of strange moment. because they don't make any sense at all. So those are the two things I think we've got to do: promote the local government commission process, really support that, and then list the things that the CDBs are wrong with it, wrong in so many ways.
Thanks. Yeah,
Well, my understanding is that CTB is actually only an interim measure, is that not correct?
That's what I agree.
And it suggests the government's actually looking at that as a mechanism to actually force this process to actually happen. Whereas Southland's already undertaken that process. So that's our position, so to say. And that has to be reinforced. And so we do have to work through the local government review process. But we need to make sure that's a really robust process. It's interesting talking to my uncle, Dave Frew. He was elected onto the Wallis County. I think he was on the Wallis County about 7 or 8 months before the last reorganisation. And he said it was suggested that it would be done locally, and then government come in over the top and appoint a commissioner. And so he said where we landed wasn't actually the best outcome for Southland. So if we're looking from a hindsight perspective, we need a really strong, robust process to get the best outcome for Southland. And this is a real opportunity.
the question you need to ask the government too, with the LGC running, is that, and I might get the opportunity to ask the leader, is that if the community comes out with an outcome, may not necessarily align with the central government policy, are they going to override? Is there a point they're going, we want to make sure and really force that this is a local decision. This is what we think that's, the government can do anything at the end of the day if they want to. But just we're going to go through this process and making sure the outcome is agreed or accepted by the central government. Sorry,
Well, I'd suggest, Jeremy, based on what we're hearing, what Mark's is talking about, this is a proposal.
Yeah.
So the government are looking for feedback that possibly will give them a mandate around direction of travel. So the province needs to be understanding and supporting the direction of travel that we've got.
I guess the other little bit of information I'm sort of aware of is that it sounds like the government's united on this. I don't think they are. There are some high people in government that don't know where the hell this come from. So this is very much a proposal that could turn, because I don't think they're united on top.
Lyndall, Sam, do you want to quickly say something then, Lyndall? Sorry. Is that right?
Yeah, thanks. Through you, Chair, just a little bit of clarity around the CTBs. So they would be made up solely of the mayors, and there is a possibility there will be a Crown Commissioner to sit on each one as well, but that's still as part of the proposal. The other thing that's worth bearing in mind is that the mayors will not have equal voting rights. They will only have voting rights they will be allocated votes according to the population of the district they represent. So that's an important clarification.
Sorry, have they decided which of those representation metrics they're going to use? Because there was a debate about whether it was going to be population based or.
It was two different types.
Yeah, there were two different ones. So they haven't decided that yet either. But either way, it's not fair.
Either way.
No.
But that's only temporary though, isn't it?
Yeah, but
2 years,
it's not temporary as in a few weeks or
2
a few
years,
months.
isn't it?
I think it's very much an interim thing that could go on for a couple of years while they set the future structure for Southland.
So just for clarification then, Sam, so it is right that their job is to come up with a new way
Proposal.
forward.
Yeah.
Which is what we've already got on
Yeah.
the table. We've got an inquiry that's fleshing that out, whereas other regions haven't even started. So that's a really important point to put in here, that we don't need to have another process because we've already got one happening.
And through you, Chair, that's a great advantage, as several of you have already pointed out.
I think there is a point that there is province areas, regions are queuing up behind us around the left, said we want to get on with it. So that, I think that's going to have the government's going to have to recognise that and go, okay, why are we stopping this? They're actually getting their heads together. They want to get on to it. It's actually heading in the right direction, what we want to direct. So you get a feeling they'll know that we'll work something out there to make those things happen. So who?
Thanks, Jeremy. I was actually just going to ask if you could maybe elaborate on the conversations you've had with either regional or territorial colleagues in Southland, and whether we are. I see some regions, have a more sort of united approach, and I haven't seen that in Southland. I think it's probably don't. But just really interested to understand if there's any
If you asked your
developments there
question.
or-
No, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was thinking you did something. Actually, Lyndall, what do you want to say
Just
before,
three-
and then we'll go back to Roger.
Three things, sorry. To Roger's point, I guess, not all the other regional councils or parts of the country feel the same way about this process as we do. Some of them are really looking forward to it. So you can't assume. The spatial plan is, in my mind, a possible way to work a transition arrangement instead of a CTB, but I don't quite know how that would work, but maybe that's a seat for it. And just a reminder that the Local Government Commission process, we have equal input like our colleagues, but when we talk about robust processes, it's their process and we've got no say in the process. So just a reminder that, we shouldn't pin too many of our hopes on that, and also the fact that some of our colleagues are working away in the background to whatever end, I don't know, to Roger's point.
Rob. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Rob.
So just a quick one first on the other regional councils. They are all quite different, as Councillor Ludlow talked about that. So in the far north, they are looking at, they're quite united, I think, around pushing for a unitary. Working down, Waikato, there's some different views. There is I think there's a view that there could be one big unitary in Waikato, but it's going to be really difficult to get over the line with the different views. And so you might end up with some amalgamations, but it's still a big Hamilton city. And so there's ongoing conversation. Bay of Plenty, it's not that clear as well. Everyone wants to get their hands on the huge asset of the Bay of Plenty. And you've got Hamilton, and you've got Rotorua and Tauranga that are always, it seems to be at loggerheads. So put all over the place. Hawke's Bay. So in Horizons, there's a general, I think, support for some sort of CCO, so managing the regional council business. So like a special purpose board, call it CCO, but actually retaining the regional functions within some sort of organisation like a CCO or a special purpose board. So that's alive and well there. Tauraneki's some mixed views in Taranaki. They're a bit like us in a lot of ways, but there's quite they're very parochial in the south. South Taranaki doesn't want to go anywhere near Hamilton, New Plymouth. Luckily they've got Stratford in the middle, because otherwise they'd just about be a war. But no, I'm exaggerating. But there was a really parochial, and so it'll be a challenge to get one council there, so quite nice. And in Wellington, there's a real push, I think, for a unitary. And Fran Wild is a key player in that. He's now one of the mayors in the Wairarapa. Yeah. So getting a picture. Canterbury is Canterbury, and lots of different views there. So do you have a Christchurch super city with a South Canterbury unitary and North Canterbury? Where does North Canterbury fit? So that conversation is all over the place. Otago is quite keen to talk to Southland around what things might look like down here. So West Coast is probably looking at the support, some support for a unitary, but not everyone's agreeing. Just a comment around Southland, and I guess the reflection on the day we had, Chair, was we were the only ones that spoke with a regional voice. The other presentations were
pretty, I've got to be careful I don't cross any confidential boundaries here, but I can say that some of the others were very parochial, pushing what their agenda was, speaking to the brief. And so I think we're not, and also Gore doesn't want a borough being part of Southland District, fair comment. So we, yeah, not sure I'm helping the conversation much.
They're your words. I want to get into that debate. Morris.
Well, that's really helpful. And you can see that from that, there's a whole lot of different situations throughout the country. And this is possibly a reason why the government is thinking, well, we're not going to put up with all of that because we'll never get anywhere. We're going to impose this system. Everybody has to comply with it. And at the end of the day, with some independent commissioners pushing it along, maybe, come up with a new scheme. So it's all very well for us to say, yes, we're doing, and Southland is apparently doing the right thing by getting the local government commission involved, but all these other things going on, and then you've got to think about what the national government is thinking of, because they don't want a whole lot of different solutions all around the country, I would think. That just makes it more difficult from what you're saying, I think.
I'll take Paul and then I've got to.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. It's just trying to get our head around it. You guys are doing very well being the messengers on this, sharing the information on this as well. But the CTBs are, the possibility of a CTB is going to be filled by people that deal with things they do, which is what they do. They're all the same. They cut reserves, they pick up rubbish. That's what they do. They don't do what we do. You're totally separate to that. So when you look at it, a task-based thing, having the three that are only focused on what they do and control what we do is going to be an issue somewhere along the line. Sure, we may look at it and say local government needs some change, and to do what they're doing at the moment with going through the RMA reforms or changes, and also going through local government, sort of changing the bathwater and the bath at the same time. It's going to take a wee while to do that. But yeah, it does sort of confuse me that the CTBs are made up of mayors that are in control of authorities that do the same stuff, but none of those people do our stuff at all. So that's a wee bit confusing. They're going to be in control of all of it, but they've never done it.
Mr. Chair, I don't think there's much support for the CTBs from the conversations I've had around the country. There's not too many support the mayors in charge. And I think also we've had an announcement, a proposal. We haven't had a decision, so I think the decision could be quite different. Is my sense. So I'm not sure there's anyone supportive of the mayors, including the discussion we had, Chair, at our mayoral forum a wee while ago. No one really, the mayors weren't keen on that. They understood they've got a job to do. They didn't know anything about this business. And
I want to say thank you to Marcus and Janet that their implication recommendations on this is right on the money. So thank you.
I think what Morris was saying about you're going to have try and standardise it. Well, yeah, I guess so. But I thought the big game was getting change. And when you look at what Rob's just told us, a lot of the other provinces are fighting amongst themselves, wondering who's going to get to the top of the mountain and who's going to fall off. And we're already behind change. We're already down the track. So I think that's the way we pitch this thing. Yeah, it seems to me that that's what they're trying to put out there with the CTBs is we're going to have change. We're going to get them to do it, but we've already behind it. We're supporting change. We're supporting that process. It's got funding. I believe somewhere along the line I caught up on that funding has been approved for Southland to run, which is actually more than a year's budget for them because normally they have quite a small budget, local government. So it's a real option.
Yeah, absolutely. Alistair, you want to?
I sort of semi-agree with you, David, but we've got infighting going on within our province, haven't we? So really, we need to elect somebody who's going to be the top dog to represent us going forward. Because you've got Gore going one way, and you'll probably have the two councils in town here going another. So we've got to get united.
But just to follow on that, the one thing that, I mean, there's already discussion urban, rural divide. We've got to get over that. That's one thing, whatever we have in the end. It's not about us and them. And the day we get, like, to be honest, a lot of don't believe that's there because we're unique in New Zealand in a region where we've probably got Invercargill as the most rural city in New Zealand. The connections between what happens in Invercargill and what happens out there, it's a service city for the agriculture, TY. So it is going to be so important. We need to get over any of the discussions around, oh, how much debt is SDC, GDC, who wants that debt? It's all of our debt. It's national debt anyway. We use each other's district. We drive through each other's districts. We drive on the roads. Our rig, the trucks, exports, everything's connected. So I know that's a discussion that's out there. And yes, you've got to get over that. It's all our debt. Southland's debt. And move on. And there probably will be winners and losers if you want to put on a thing, but hopefully long term it's a win-win situation. We've got the efficiencies, whatever structure I might add, and the end comes out should be at its most efficient, getting the returns on their investment and the services the community needs in the future. So there's a lot of things, a lot of hills to climb, discussion, and they will ping out when politics are working in this. So we actually got to move. That's a way, sort of almost noise. Got to get down to the nuts and bolts and just get the right people in there and get a structure and make sure everybody's got the right information. That's all I'm saying. Do you want to carry on?
Yeah.
Better carry on.
You need to, I just recognise that it's good.
Yeah, sorry.
Only been on one slide and there's a couple more to go. So staging the reform, so effectively implementing structural changes, revenue constraints and regulatory regimes are all occurring concurrently. Also the proposal was remove regional councils while introducing spatial planning and environmental limit setting and require the CTPs to govern regional functions and territorial responsibilities at the same time, and it is getting into the LTP stage too. So if you're making big decisions on what we're doing, how we're doing it, how we're resourcing that, then it's beneficial to have the right people at the table to help those decisions. So implications, significant implementation risks due to cumulative system stress, reduced institutional understanding, increased policy volatility, reduced resilience and public confidence. CTB may not cope with workload under proposed timeframes, compressed consultation disadvantages rural, provincial and Maori communities. So our recommendations are delay implementation till after the current local government election cycle. Let these councillors see out their term, avoid simultaneous structural change, revenue constraint and regulatory overhaul all at the same time, extend or stage consultation to improve engagement quality, and conduct cross-reform analysis to ensure coherence and alignment with the aspirations of what they're actually seeking to achieve, because there's a risk that implementation of this wider reform may be disrupted with the governance changes as well.
Morrison.
I just be wondering, I think it's taken as read, but the functions of the council itself, our functions under the Act, under the RNA at the moment, under this legislation, will continue. So whether you have us, or you have a CTV, or you have something else, then the functions of the council will still carry on. And that's essential. I think that has to be mentioned, but it's really important. That would be acting illegal if we don't do that. So I assume that will happen. So the staff of the organisation shouldn't be affected too much, at least not in the CTB process, because their main job, as I understand it, is to help reorganise a new system, not actually manage the council wrong there, not actually manage the council in the interim. You know, you've got a chief executive, so that would be the person that carries on and does all the work and make sure it gets done, and maybe report back to the CTB if they're going to have that. But it's not the job of the CTB to say, oh, well, we don't really like what the regional council was doing before, their annual plan, their long-term plan, are we going to change all of that? I can't see that happen. They just, as you said before, David, they don't have time or the expertise to do that. So I'm assuming that whatever happens, the work will still continue. So I think that needs to be, we need to make sure we know that that is the case. Before Sam talked about the voting of the CTP representatives, each of the mayors, and you know, and exactly how it's going to be distributed is not certain yet. But again, could be wrong here and quite often wrong. They are not going to be voting on the actual functioning of the thing. They're going to be voting on ways to change the system so that the new system can be set up. That's the way I see it. To suddenly say, okay, we don't like what regional council's doing, we're going to do something totally different. Can't see that happening.
Lee, do you want to add?
Chair, the intention of the proposal is that the combined territory boards do govern during that transition period. So their role in governing could include that of taking substantially different decisions than the previous regional council governance entities did.
Just to put that clear, and Mayor Tom, Invercargill ICC has a majority if it's population based or whatever hell he rules the roost. The other two councils can't. Depending on how they do their voting, but if it's which I probably would have thought
It's
there might be a
dual
population.
threshold
It is.
voting, dual threshold voting. So
Right.
you need to get a motion through. You need to, yes, hold the weight of the population, but also the weight in terms of the numbers of mayors that are on that board. So you have to reach those,
So-
but you are correct, Chair.
You would have a fear.
Invercargill are in
That's
effect
what I say.
the kingmaker, so
Yeah.
to speak, in that form of voting system.
Right.
I was just going to say what Hayley said.
Okay.
Thank you.
Was there any, David, did you have any?
Oh, well, it was just until Hayley made the clarification that
Yeah.
they would be governing, you're actually taking democracy away from the council table and the view and the steering, and then you revert back to people's own views or agendas around the staff of the council. So, and that could lead to problems when they don't line up with each other. So, you know, that's our role, is to keep it going in one direction, but to democratically through this process.
That does actually make a very, very narrow point of who makes the decision and govern our functions in those couple of years of transition. But ultimately, one or two per people, it doesn't have to be councils, could ultimately govern what we're doing. I'm just putting it out there legally.
No.
I don't know whether they will have that, but I mean, although we need to point that out. No, we could point out the issues around this democratic mandate. So anyway,
Yeah, through
Thank
the
you.
chair, effectively, in the new resource management replacement legislation, the regional council is mentioned throughout both of those documents. So when they were drafted, it was very much, this is a regional council function, the regional council shall, it's the responsibility of the regional council too. That's the wording of the two new bills to replace the Resource Management Act. So there's very much thinking that it was regional council function continues to pick up that point. Onto the next slide, we've got democratic legitimacy. So effectively the proposal is to replace regionally elected councils with CTBs, reduce the number of decision makers and concentrate authority. The implications are weakens democracy or democratic legitimacy and accountability, reduces opportunities for meaningful opposition or correction, that debate and conversation around the table, risks disengagement, resistance and future policy reversal, mayor representation diminished at a regional level, removes democracy or democratic authority at the same time or at the time of greatest system complexity with reform. So our recommendations are clearly establish democratic legitimacy as a core design principle, preserve or strengthen democratic accountability and representation, recognise that consultation is not a substitute for representation, and avoid local government models reliant on indirect or ministerial authority.
Very clear with that. Good recommendations.
Good, no questions.
On to the next slide, we've got leadership of the reform process. So the proposals require mayors to take on regional governance roles through the CTB, potential immediate establishment of interim CTB before the next elections. So the implications of that would be mayors lack capacity for heavy regional workload. Currently there's about 90 plus committee meetings annually in the regional council functions. Territorial and regional functions are distinct. Capability is not interchangeable. Risks poorer decisions, loss of regional expertise and higher long-term costs. Dual roles were not anticipated by candidates or voters in 2025, and loss of EU relationships, local knowledge and institutional memory. Our recommendations therefore are deferring the local government reform until the next election cycle. And if an interim CTB proceeds, appoint existing regional council to chair the CTB as a minimum, and allow the CTB to appoint advisors with regional governance experience.
Sounds good.
Cool, we're on the right track. Achieving success, I think this is the last slide I've got. So the proposal is to transition to a new system without dedicated transitioning resource. The proposal rates target model does not account for reform-related costs. So this is about how do we get ourselves into the new system. The implications are risk of delayed implementation and failure to realise efficiencies, transition costs significant and will affect the long-term plan process. Ratepayers are likely to bear financial burden unless government funds the transition. Parallel reforms with resource management, rates capping and governance changes increase cost and complexity. So our recommendations are provide sufficient tools, financial support and guidance for a transition, exempt system change costs from the proposed rates targets, and ensure representative governance remains at the core of service delivery.
It's not going to happen.
Nice.
Just going back to appointing the chair, regional chair on the CTB, I think that's an excellent idea, and I would go further and say that I think we should, CTB, rather than being the three mayors, it should be the three mayors and their deputies, plus the regional council and their deputy, and that gives a bigger group that is, if they're determined to go through with that. I'm not saying they should, but if we ask for a little bit more, maybe we just end up with just Jeremy, but if we go for a deputy as well, I think that would be good.
It's just Alistair, do you want to say anything, or
Yeah, I can't see this actually happening, because the goal of the government was to reduce the costs of local government and make it more efficient. So really, it's cross purposes. The CTB and democracy don't go hand in hand. So I can't see that the people of this country will allow that to happen, in my view.
probably why it's a proposal that they've got a lot of outs.
We're wasting
This little, sorry.
Yeah,
wasting time.
I refuse to, just given, because that's not who I am. Can you go back to the next slide?
Previous, yeah.
We are wasting time.
It's the timing of this is critical. And in my view, actually, if they'd let us get our spatial plans done without interfering with the governance and the leadership of it, that might actually demonstrate a future system. Because I'm guessing that they're hoping that the spatial plans, because they are much simpler, are more easily managed by a single or a two singles authority, do you know what I mean? So I'm a bit nervous about getting the spatial plan done in a way, but actually we need to get it done. And if we can demonstrate that we have worked with our territorial authorities to create our spatial plan, surely that provides quite a good model for managing the transition. Because the right people will be in the room. Just a thought. But anyway, the timing is critical. So yes, to your recommendations.
Roger, thanks. Roger.
It was very minor on the previous slide related to the timing. And I think it's implicit, but I guess clarifying the election cycle that we're referring to is the LG election cycle, not the national election cycle, or even beyond, potentially, to allow time for all the other change that's occurring and potentially the spatial planning.
Make the next elections interesting.
I've got you and I haven't missed anyone. Just make sure I haven't written this. Yep.
Yeah, Marcus, could you go back to the first, I think it was the first slide? Centralising, centralising governance under control, reducing regional authority, because my understanding is spatial plans won't just sit with, so they can be influenced by government, by commissioners if they're appointed, so it actually won't be a democratic process linked to, I understand what you're saying, but this is what where the government's trying to get to. We're trying to get to a place where they have levers to actually influence or change direction regionally. So it is critical that we actually are able to get ahead of that process from a democratic perspective, I believe. Yeah. And however we do that.
Yes.
Thank you for the messages.
One thing though, we're driving local democracy here. Absolutely. And with local democracy, if we get a decision, we own it. And the day we get a commissioner comes in, not against the local government commission, that's a process, good, public process. But if you start bringing commissioners in, saying this is what's good for you, you'll lose the public. And that's probably something we need to really, like down here, we want to be involved. And it's long term, that it's going to take time, this, and you want to make sure it gets done right. 1 in 40 years. Once since a generation we have a change. A couple of years of sorting this out is not a long time to get it right. Instead of getting thrown down here 3 months, give us this mission, and we want your thoughts on it. It's a major change. So time is the essence.
Any of this process, whether you go to CDPs or whatever you do, it's all going to take time. It'll be no
It's going to
quicker
cost
than
money
what
too.
we're talking about, because you just can't bring these things in and go, next year we're going to have a new thing. It takes. They announce it at the start of one term and transition into it for the start of the next term. It normally takes a whole term to get prepared to bring it in. So what they're talking about doing will be no quicker than what we've already got in place. And we've actually starting to look at systems. So that's a bizarre thing. There's nothing, I can't see any savings in this anywhere. Because as I said, you're just going to take the jet ski person and put them on the ship. The ship's still sailing. It's not like you're taking the ship away, it's still running.
Around in circles.
Yeah.
Into the coast.
Can we ask the LGC to view this election?
Some people might be listening then, which won't do any harm.
Well, it would be good if the LGC could listen into all of the authorities' workshops relating to this, because that would assist them in any way, shape or form.
There are lots of questions. See where they come to, but I'm pretty happy with what we've got here. Got a pretty good feel for where we stand.
we'll compile that and we'll draft it up into the final submission and put it up on the agenda for the 19th of February. But thanks very much for your input and thoughts, opinions on this topic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep fighting the good fight, Marcus and Shannon.
Yeah,
See you on Thursday at field day.
we've seen that. Real good. Right, right, thanks, guys.